Howdy, folks. Welcome back to another episode of Knockout Analysis presented by CronYo Media. I am your host, Ethan Chronister, playing this week as Oban Elliott. This is your co-host, Mr. Whit Barnes, cosplaying as Tofik. I'm not even going to attempt to say his last name yet. I got a while to build up to that. He still has Omar Sy on the bottom part of his name there, so rip to that guy. He got his absolute ass kicked last week.
Yeah.
That fight card last week, what a card. What an intriguing card, to say the least. We saw a stellar acting performance from one Rodolfo Bellato after he got absolutely hornswoggled by an up kick from Paul Craig. Paul Craig low-key kind of looked like he was winning that fight too until that happened. But Paul Craig was ready for some jiu-jitsu on the ground, and time again, I've told you he scoots around on his ass like an inchworm, and that's exactly what he was doing before the up kick of doom. But enough about Paul Craig. We will now move on to the fight card that is happening this week. Mr. Barnes, you introduced this card so well. Just do it for the good people.
It's UFC BAKU in Azerbaijan, man. The first time the UFC has ever been out here. I'm excited. Kron's excited. You should be excited. If you're in the United States, you get to wake up and have lunch and watch fights. You don't have to wait till 6 p.m. You don't have to go to bed around midnight. It starts at 11 a.m. and it's probably going to end around 5 or 6. Well, 11 a.m. in Central Time. For Kron, it'll be over around dinner time for him. So he's going to have lunch and dinner with his fights. So it's going to be a beautiful card. We get to see the Azerbaijan people show up and see their fighters show out, which is what I expect them to do. Back to you, Mr.
That being said, we will move on to the very first fight of the night, or day, night for them. We have Hamdi Abdelwaheb versus Muhammad Usman. We have the brother of Kamaru Usman, who just won his fight last week, facing off against an inflated version of Bilal Muhammad. So what we have here is a 170 on ESPN favorite and a 198 on UFC favorite for Hamdi. Now, opposite from Bilal, it looks like this guy likes to throw hands because he has 6 wins and 5 knockouts in his pro career. He beat Don'Tale Mayes in his first fight, which take that for what you will. That guy's an absolute bum. And his fight after that, he won by split decision again. So he has 2 wins in the UFC. He's 2-0. Both of those wins have come by split decision. Whereas we have Usman, who is, I believe, 11-4, coming off of a victory from his brother. He is coming off of a loss, though. He lost to Thomas the Train Peterson. He was 1-2 in his last 3 fights. He did beat Tafa, though, so, take that for what you will. But this fight, it's kind of a toss-up. Just 2 big guys that are probably going to brawl, and I see this fight being an ugly decision victory, probably for Hamdi here. What say you in the matter, Mr. Barnes?
Neither of these dudes have knockouts in any of their more recent fights. Hamdi had a 3-year layoff because of PEDs, so this is his second fight this year, and he had the 3-year layoff between his last bout. Some call him Hamdi Abdul Blob, because his physique isn't as good because he's been on steroids. And his last fight, many considered to be quite controversial. It was in Abu Dhabi. He was the slight favorite. A lot of people thought Jamal Pogues won that fight, and Jamal Pogues, in fact, did have a 30-27 scorecard go his way, and he still lost the decision. I thought it was a fairly close fight. Hamdi did land some damaging strikes that could have swayed the round, but I'm not going to complain too much about it. And Muhammad Usman, I did watch his fight with Thomas Peterson when it happened. I expected him to win it, but he got handled pretty well on the feet by Thomas Peterson. I don't really like that he got handled that much by a wrestler on the feet. I don't think he's going to take the fight to the ground. He's not really like his brother in that aspect, like an elite wrestler. I'm going to have to take Hamdi. I think if it's a close fight, the judges in this part of the world are going to give him the advantage, and I think he's going to outstrike. I think he's going to land the more damaging strikes in this fight. Give me Hamdi Abdelwahab by 29-28 decision.
I'll move us straight into the next one. We have number 12 ranked Tagir Ulanbekov facing Azat Maksum, the Russian facing the Kazakhstanian. And this particular matchup here, we got a 90 favorite for Tagir. We mentioned in our rankings video, which if you haven't watched, go check that one out, that Tagir has a little bit of a question mark next to his name sometimes when it comes to his activeness and fighting, but this will be his second fight this year, so maybe we're seeing an uptick in activity from Ulanbekov. He will be fighting, again, as previously stated, the Kazakhstanian Azat Maxim, who is 1-1 in the UFC. Both of his last two fights have been decided by a decision, whether it was a win or a loss. Ulanbekov has one decision and two submissions in his last three fights. I personally think this should be a pretty easy fight for Ulanbekov. I think that he will win this fight via submission in the second round.
Yeah, you're not going to get much argument from me on any account of this fight. Earlier this week, or like a week and a half ago, he was only like a minus 300 favorite. So people have been coming in on Ulanbekov, bringing him to the minus 525 he is now. I think he's going to dominate this fight on the ground like he did his last bout. And I think if he wins this fight in a dominating fashion, he will get a favorite. And he will be moved up in the rankings. He will get a fight somewhere up there against someone that's not scheduled. I can't think of anybody that isn't off the top of my head. But I believe that could be in his future, especially if he tries to have a quick turnaround like he did from his recent fight. Even if this fight somehow plays out close, I believe it'll go Ulanbekov's way, especially this region of the world, even though Maxim's from Kazakhstan. Ulanbekov is a Khabib prodigy, so there's a lot of respect on that name over there in Asia. I'm going to take him. I think this one will be a decision. I think it'll be wrestle heavy. I could see a submission in like the second, third round as well, but I'm going to go 30-27. I think it's going to be pretty cut and dry. I think it's going to be a carbon copy of Ulanbekov's last fight. He's going to wrestle. He's going to use his striking to get into his wrestling, and it's going to be a pretty easy fight for him.
That'll move us into the next one, where we have Irina Alekseeva, also known as the Russian Ronda, facing against Claudia Sagula. Both of these people have a 2-loss record. 5-2 for the Russian Ronda, 6-2 for Claudia. Claudia lost her UFC debut via knockout. She was knocked out in the second round by the person that is fighting above them on this card. Alekseeva, she lost her last fight too, I believe, to the same person by unanimous decision, and won her UFC debut by submission. She has not fought since October of 2023. Not sure if that was due to injury or due to something else, or probably due to the fact that no one wants to fight her bum ass. She is a 225 favorite in this fight. I'm picking the underdog here. Give me Claudia Sagula by knockout.
Yeah, I mean, it's the battle of the Melissa Mullins victims here. You know, it's crazy to say. Who would have thought that this would have been on a non-Apex card? But, you know, here we are. We are in this region of the world, which I'm going to keep alluding to. You know, I'm going to have to keep thinking about. Segula is younger. She has a reach advantage. But, dude, if you're getting knocked out by Melissa Mullins, you are very, very defensively or deficient in the defensive area, man. That scares me. That scares me from wanting to back her in this fight, man. I'm going to go with Alekseeva via control decision on the ground, maybe even a sub. You know, if this fight's close, it's going to go Alekseeva's way. I'm going to pick her to win this fight via 29-28 decision. I think Segula will have a moment that may sway her around, but I'm going to have to take Alekseeva 29-20.
And then that'll move us straight to the next one, where we have Daria Zelezniakova facing off against Melissa Mullins, who we've just previously mentioned. Mullins is a huge favorite in this fight, 258. Not huge, I guess, but if you look at the decisions from the last two, you'll understand. Zelezniakova, as Witt keeps alluding to, we are in her region of the world. She calls herself the Iron Lady. In her last two fights, she has lost by first round decision I could be tripping here, but I think that's the UFC fighter that has OnlyFans, but I could be tripping. And then won her first fight in the UFC via unanimous decision. So submitted by a content creator and then won by unanimous decision is how her UFC career is gone. And then we'll move on to the 7-1 Melissa Mullins here, who is 2-1 in her last 3 fights. And both of those wins came to the people we just talked about previously. Her loss came via knockout to Nora Cornhole. And that being said, I'm just going to follow the line on this one here. I don't think this will be much of a fun fight to watch. I'll get Melissa Mullins here by a probably pretty ugly split decision.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to fade Melissa Mullins, even though it is in this neck of the woods. You know, I think it could be a split decision because of the regional judging, but I think Melissa Mullins is the better fighter here. You know, submission via content creator, which that content creator is climbing the bantamweight division, to be fair. And now that I'm looking in here, they have fought before. She has already been knocked out by Melissa Mullins, so I feel like I have no choice but to take Melissa Mullins again, you know, especially in the Ultimate Fighting Championship, where Melissa Mullins has proven to be a competent fighter in this division. And Kron, since you're on the UFC website, are they both unranked, or is Melissa Mullins ranked?
Neither of them are ranked.
Yeah, it's a rare women's bantamweight unranked fight in front of a crowd in Azerbaijan, man. Like, who would have thought? So we have that. I mean, the odds on this fight, I'm not going to throw minus 260 on Mullins. And if you want my opinion on the last fight, I'm not throwing the minus 300 on Alex Silva. Don't bet on women's MMA. If you are, sprinkle something on the dog if you really feel so inclined to do such, but I will take Melissa Mullins. I think it could be a split. This fight is a rematch. It's Mullins versus Zaleski-Neokova 2. How could you not want to see that fight? That's what Dana White said. Not really, I just made it up, but I'm going to take Melissa Mullins by decision. I think it could be unanimous, or maybe she ignites the crowd with a finish like she did in the first fight. But I'm going to take a decision. I don't think I've taken a finish so far on this card, which doesn't loom large, but we have some upcoming. Do not worry about it.
Yeah, so I just did research. That is, in fact, the content creator that submitted her in the first round.
Content creator.
That's embarrassing. So we both agree on Melissa Mullins here. Here we have our first Korean facing off against someone from Morocco. We have Ismail Nordiev, I guess, versus Jung Young Park. We have a 225 favorite here for Park. Both fighters coming off of wins in their last fights. 2-inch height advantage for Ismail. Reach is pretty close for both fighters. Ismail calls himself Burrs Dog. In his last fight, he won versus Bruno Silva. He won that fight via unanimous decision, and his fight before that, it's not showing me here on the UFC website what the decision was, but he fought Sean Brady in 2020. I'm not sure if he got cut or what, but he did not fight again in the UFC for 4 years after that. Let me see.
That is true. He did get cut.
Okay. So he got cut. Didn't come back to the UFC for 4 years, so he lost by unanimous decision to Sean Brady. So we'll move now to his opponent, Jung Young Park, who is a very non-Asian looking Asian. He is 2-1 in his last 3 fights, won his last fight via split decision to Tavares. I think this fight is a toss-up here. I think these guys are probably going to slug it out for 15 minutes and come to a split decision win for Jung Young Park.
Yeah, I mean, this is indeed a toss-up of a fight. Minus 190 in Jung Young Park's kind of risky. If you look at who Jung Young Park has lost to, it's Andre Muniz, who's decent, and then he's lost to Gregory Rodriguez, who is just outside of the top 15, and Anthony Hernandez, who's making a title run at the moment. So not bad comp. He's beaten and finished a lot of jobber level, journeyman level fighters. You know, Brad Tavares is one fight away from being the middleweight king as far as wins in the division in the Ultimate Fighting Championship, and he has a win over him pretty recently in the Royval Tyra card. So Jung Young Park, been here for a while. Nardiev did have a 2-2 first in the UFC. You know, win one, lose one. They decided not to bring him back. He fought 3 guys that I don't think I've ever heard of. So take that for what you will. He came back. He beat Bruno Silva, and we talked about Bruno Silva. He's been cut after he got his skull dented in by Marc-Andre Barriault. And that fight before the Barriault fight for Silva was against Nardiev, and he didn't look good. Bruno Silva did not look like he wanted to be there. Nardiev just kind of did whatever he pleased, and Nardiev did not get the finish in that fight against a guy that looked completely checked out, which is somewhat alarming, despite the fact that he very convincingly won that fight. So I can't really, with confidence, pick Nardiev. I'm going to have to take the veteran who hasn't lost to anybody, completely terrible. I don't think Nardiev's terrible, but I think Jung Park, this is this type of guy that he beats, you know? He beats these mid-level middleweights. So I'm going to take Jung Park. I think we have a 29-28. I'm going to go UD on this one, and on we go.
Yes, on to the next one. We have Seokyeon Ko facing off against the Welsh gangster Obon Elliott. Now, I don't know. There is no odds for this, but I think he's a minus 500 right now. Or is it plus 500?
Obon's a minus 500, and Seokyeon Ko's a plus 350 per ESPN.
So Suck on Toes is a Dana White Contender Series on loan. He won his last fight in that promotion, I believe, by unanimous decision against Cavalcanti. That being said, this is his official UFC debut. In his career, he's 11-2 in his professional MMA career. Of those 11 fights and victories, he has 6 knockout victories. So he has a puncher's chance when it comes to fighting. I believe his last fight before the Contender Series, he knocked somebody out in 58 seconds. So we have Obon Elliott and Ko have one thing in common. They've both been knocked out in their pro career twice, both of which have been in a regional promotion. Obon is 3-0 in the UFC. He's kind of on a little bit of a tear. He gets one more fight win here. It's probably going to give him a shot at the rankings. And I think that Obon Elliott's going to win this fight, but I don't think he's going to finish the young feller. I think this is going to be a unanimous decision victory, probably 30-27.
Yeah. I mean, I think Seokyeon Ko, or Suck on Toes, as Kron called him, I think he's pretty good. Igor Cavalcanti was a big favorite coming into that Contender Series bout. I was pretty high on him. He has great power. He's won some boxing matches since this one, and a few, I believe 1 or 2 MMA matches as well. I believe he will be back on the Contender Series, and I think he's going to win. Spoiler alert if we do see him. Seokyeon Ko was able to avoid the power. Cavalcanti gassed out and wasn't able to out-volume him. Very smart fighter, Seokyeon Ko. A lot of respect. But this is a crazy step up in competition. Obon Elliott is right outside of the welterweight rankings after his last performance against Basel Hafez, who I hold in high regard. Nobody does that to Basel Hafez, you know, and only Obon Elliott hasn't finished him, and I can't look past that in this fight. I think he has more experience. I think he has aura, and I think he's going to go out there. I think he's going to be the third person to knock out Seokyeon Ko. I think it's going to be late in the fight. Seokyeon Ko is going to be down 2 rounds. It's going to be the consensus within his corner, and I think he's going to get another 3rd round finish here and ignite the Azerbaijan crowd maybe for the first time in the night.
That'll conclude the prelims of this here fight night card in the Middle East. That'll move us on now to the first fight of the main card, where we have Mohamed Naimov facing off against Bogdan Grad. Bogdan will be fighting out of Austria, and Mohamed will be fighting out of Tajikistan. Sure, never even heard of that country, but he is a 225 favorite. In his last fight, he defeated Olfi by unanimous decision. In the fight before that, he lost to Wits Pookie Bear, the fraud checker himself, Felipe Lima. And then the fight before that, he beat Naimov by 1st round knockout in 44 seconds. So 2-1 in his last 3 fights. Whereas if we move on to his opponent, Mr. Bogdan Grad, I believe this is going to be his 2nd fight in the UFC. He won his first fight by knockout in the 2nd round on an Adesanya Fight Night card earlier this year. I think that was another Middle Eastern card, am I correct?
The Adesanya Imavov card? Yeah, it was.
Yeah, I think that was a
Abu Dhabi.
Abu Dhabi card. He had won his last 4 fights before that. He was in the cage fight series. He won by split decision in the Dana White Contender Series. Now here he is. I think I'm going to slide in another underdog pick here. I think it'll be an interesting geographical matchup, and I think Bogdangrad's going to win this fight by knockout in the second round.
Tron, we are in sync tonight. We are in sync, you know? We've been having a lot of the same picks, and I think we're going to have it again because, damn, Bogdangrad is an underdog, but I really do like him. He had a great fight with Michael Aswell, who has been confirmed we will see in the Contender Series again this summer and fall. And the Lucas Alexander fight, it looked really good as well, getting the knockout. You know, he's only getting better. He's entering his prime in the featherweight division. And Nardiev, man, or not Nardiev, excuse me, Naimov, I haven't been super impressed with. He's just been kind of okay. He's beaten a bunch of jobbers, and he's lost to the one, the only, Felipe Lima. So I think this line's completely out of control. I think this is closer to an even fight. So the value is definitely going to be on a guy like Bogdangrad. Shit, I'm going to take him. I'm going to take him. He's out of Austria. He's in foreign territory because Tajikistan's in this same region, you know. I don't think this fight's going to be close enough to where they're going to justify giving it to Naimov, but we have seen stuff like that before. I think Bogdangrad is good enough here to get a knockout or a doctor stoppage with the volume and the power that he possesses. I think third round TKO. I could see in the future for him with his cardio. Mom and Naimov. I think this is a little bit too much of a test for him. He could beat jobbers, but I think Bogdangrad is a little bit of a higher level than that.
That'll move us into our next fight, which will be our first Azerbaijan fighter, Nazim Sadikov, facing off against the American Brazilian Nicholas Mata. I guess our friend Nazim fights out of Russia. 10-1-1 for Nazim, 15-5 with 1 no contest for Nicholas Mata. Both fighters coming off of a win in their last contest. Nazim, in his last fight, he won by doctor stoppage in the first round against Bonfim. That fight was also earlier this year. I wonder if that was the same card. I wonder if he fought on that Izzy card too.
That was Cannonier Rodriguez.
9 finishes and 10 wins for Nazim, fighting in his motherland for the first time. I'm not even going to talk too much about this one. I fear for Mr. Mata's life on this one. I think this is going to be an easy knockout win for Nazim on this fight.
I mean, I'm going to do some MMA math on this one. Not only is Nazim fighting in his motherland, but Evan Elder, Terrence McKinney, and Ismail Bonfim are all better fighters than Nicholas Mota. I'll just put it like that. And he finished all 3 of them. You know, Nicholas Mota did have a win in his last fight against Mahashate, which he was a 2-1 underdog. Won all 3 rounds pretty decisively. I was up at 3 a.m. watching that fight. First fight on the card. Very drowsy. Yeah, he clearly won it, but I don't think he's going to do that to Nazim Sadikov. Nazim Sadikov's pretty violent. You know, to be able to beat one of the Bonfim brothers as decisively as he did, and to be able to beat Evan Elder as decisively as he did, it's quite impressive, and I put a lot of respect on those wins and those names that he's collected, and I think he's going to do the same thing to Nicholas Mata in his motherland, and I see a first or second round KO finish here. There's levels to this game. And Nazim Sadikov, I think not the rankings, I mean, it's harder to get to the rankings at lightweight because there's 105 fighters in this division, but he will get a bump in competition after this victory, I believe. I think the line is warranted as well, but I wouldn't bet on it with it being this steep.
Now, I want to thank Mr. Barnes for putting his name this week to this guy, because I do not envy him trying to pronounce these guys' names first, because I'm handing off the lead to you, Mr. Barnes.
Pleasure's mine. So yeah, the Azerbaijan, the Baku native, Tofik Musayev against Mitibek Oralbay, who was in an absolute war last year at UFC 308, one of the best fights of the year. Go back and watch it if you haven't seen it. Mitibek Oralbay's eye was quite literally like popping out at some point during that fight. Just go look up the images of the after fight or go watch the fight if you haven't seen it. That's all I'm going to say about it. When you take a lot of damage like that, and you go up against a violent striker like Tofik Musayev, I think that could be a recipe for disaster. Because he did take probably about 3 to 4 fights worth of damage in that one fight, and he lost, unfortunately. Very close fight, could have won either way. But Tofik Musayev is a risen champion against Patricio Pitbull's brother. He's had some Bellator fights as well. This is his UFC debut, which has not really looked great up to this point for debuting fighters from another organization. They do not have a good track record here in 2025, but
Not at
he
all.
isn't going against a top 10 lightweight. He's not going against a top 10 lightweight, and that's fine. That is good. He is getting an opportunity here in his motherland. I think he's going to have the advantage on the feet as long as he can stuff the takedowns. He's gonna win this fight. I think he could get a finish due to the damage that Oralby took in his fight last year. Oralby does have the age advantage. He probably does have less mileage, but taking that much damage does affect a lot of people's confidence, and we'll see what it does for Oralby. But I think Musayev is going to get, what round do I want to say he's knocking him out in, Ron? Shit, give me a second round knockout for Tafik Musayev in his motherland. I think we're going to have a clean sweep here for the Azerbaijan fighters.
Yeah, I'm not gonna bet against him in his homeland. Or am I? Not sure yet. I just know that you could give me 20 guesses on where this guy lived, on where Oralby lived, and I would pick in a cave every single time. So I'm filming, brother. We'll probably have to edit that out. But we have Oralby fighting here against Musayev, again, in his home country. Interesting geographical matchup, but I can't really bet against him in his home country. His motherland's motherland. So give me Musayev as well. I think he'll win the fight by a convincing 30. And that'll move us into the next fight where we'll actually see. I mean, we're pretty late into the week right now, so we'll have to see. But for some reason, this fight just can't happen for some reason. And that fight would be between the number 5 ranked heavyweight fighter in the division, Curtis Blades, facing off against an unranked fighter, Rizvan Kunayev. How do you say that?
Rizvan Kunayev.
Rizvan Kunayev. Kunayev with an opportunity here of a lifetime, facing off against the number 5 ranked fighter in the division, being an unranked fighter himself. He has 8 finishes and 12 wins. He is not a bum. He won his Contender Series fight by first round knockout. Took him all around to do it, but he won it nonetheless. Curtis Blades, in his last fight, he was a sufferer of a defeat to one Tom Aspinall in a minute flat, who is my champion. So he's 1-2 in his last 2 fights. Could potentially be the start of Curtis Blades' downfall. Not really sure what we got to expect in this one. Geographical matchup, again, we've got a Russian facing off against an American in the Middle East, which seems to be a interesting topic as of late. So I'm going to go ahead and shock the world here and pick the underdog. I think Rizvan Kunayev is going to win this fight.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people have been picking the Russian because, man, the first 2 times we've talked about this fight, these guys have faced off before. These guys have weighed in and faced off, and the fight's still been canceled for one reason or another. So this is one of those, I'll believe the fight when the bell rings in the first round because it's been so back and forth. I'm glad it's potentially finally happening, though. I like Rizvan Kunayev. I had him in my UFC heavyweight rankings when we did that video. I think he's worthy. I think he can beat anybody in the bottom 5 besides maybe Talison Teixeira. So, and maybe he can get much higher than that. You know, he did beat Renan Ferreira, who recently fought Francis Ngannou and got dominated. So, but he did end up going to a no contest because he was on steroids or some sort of PEDs. So we'll see how Rizvan Kunayev looks on the scales. I was trying to get on Twitter and see if either of these guys have weighed in. I do not believe they have at this time, but it should happen later this afternoon so. We'll see. It's a tough fight to pick. If you wanted Curtis Blades in the last fight, I think he was like a minus 380, 400 favorite, something to that extent. And he is much cheaper at a minus 235 if you like him. I like Curtis Blades. I think he's a top 5 heavyweight for a reason. I like Rizvan Kunayev too. I think the odds are much more fair this time around, but this fight will not go the distance. There's finishing potential on both sides. They have weighed in.
Yep. CronYo weighed in at 264.5,
Yeah. Anything on Blitz?
258.
258. I'm gonna have to look up pictures, man. I might change my pick if Kunieb looks really good, but I am gonna pick Blades because I love me some Curtis
It
Razor
looks like
Blades.
UFC has on the website, they have it's a 24-minute video ceremonial weigh-ins UFC Baku.
Usually a page I follow on Twitter does the weigh-ins and they'll give you a picture, but they did not do that today.
While we're here, let's just see if anybody missed weight.
That oral by fight is at catch weight. I remember seeing that.
Yeah,
I think
Tofik weighed in at 163, Orlabai weighed in at 165.
yeah.
Oban Elliott weighed in at 170. Joe weighed in at 169. It looks like, Jesus. Hamdi weighed in at 264.5, and Muhammad Usman weighed in at 244.
Yeah, Hamdi may have an advantage there. That's usually what he weighs in at, though.
But it
He's a
doesn't look
big
like
ass
anybody
dude.
missed weight.
Congratulations. It's much more professional than the fucking, what card was that, dude? That card where the main event was canceled, the Blanchfield
The
Barber
Blanchfield
card.
Barber.
The card that everybody will forget
I
I
already
almost
did
forgot
until
just
you
now.
mentioned it.
Yeah, shit. Well, we'll scrub that from our memory. We'll probably edited that out of the video. But Curtis Blades, I'm going to take him by a second round KO. Wouldn't be surprised if he unfortunately loses this one here because Kuniev is no joke. I could see Kuniev being fast tracked to a title fight against Aspinall to add some more flair to this division. It would be a very interesting matchup. It's kind of do or die for Blades here as far as his future in the heavyweight division. We'll see if he can get his way back to another title shot after coming on what I believe to be an undisputed title fight. So I'll take Blades second round TKO. As you can tell, me and Kron are split on this one, so it could go either way. Pick your poison.
That'll move us to the next fight. Another Azerbaijan native, Rafael Fiziev, facing off against Ignacio Bahamadez from Chile. The 11th ranked fighter here is Rafael, coming off of a loss in his last fight. He lost to Mr. Gaethje himself. Before that, he lost to Gamrot. Before that, he lost to Gaethje again. So he's on a 3-fight skid right now. The most recent loss to Gaethje came earlier this year in March. I believe the card before we started. No, that was a little before that. But we got Ignacio fighting as well. He is 3-0 in his last 3 fights, so quite the opposite of what we have here. I'm going to pick a shocker here. I think Ignacio is going to take this fight. I don't like the fact that Fizio's lost fucking 3 fights in a row. So give me him here. I will take his spot in the rankings and flip it over to Mr. Ignacio here. In his motherland, nonetheless, will he suffer this defeat?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's an asterisk by the Gamrot loss because Fiziev did unfortunately tear his ACL in that fight and set him back for about a year from getting his next fight. But also, I will put an asterisk by that. Justin Gaethje is Justin Gaethje. Those are both very close, very competitive fights, especially the first one. The second one was pretty clear-cut, but it was still close. And Fiziev did take it on like 2 to 3 weeks notice as well. Bahamondes, he's 6'3", Kron's to saying, and kind of to mine, he is a Bilal Muhammad training partner. He has won his last 3. Manuel Torres is a good one. I do not know who Christos Giagos is, might not be in the UFC anymore. And then Jalen Turner was also a very impressive win, a fight that I picked.
Did you just say he's a Bilal Muhammad training partner?
I did just say that.
So what you're telling me is that Fiziev is 3-0 and Bahamadez is 0-3, and Fiziev's winning this fight by first round knockout.
Fiziev's winning this fight by first round knockout. But he is a Bilal Muhammad training partner. I mean, I think there's levels to this game. I think that Justin Gaethje is not like a bum. A lot of people are against Justin Gaethje right now because of his complaints about not getting a title fight and due to his lack of wrestling. But this fight will take place on the feet. Fiziev does have very good takedown defense. Ignacio is not going to be able to exploit him on the ground in a manner in which he did Jalen Turner. I think this isn't a fight in which he gets out-volumed because Fiziev is a Muay Thai champion. People forget, man. He's also in his motherland. People forget, man. He has faced fighters with a much bigger frame than him on many occasions. throughout his fighting career. And sheesh, I see him pushing the pace here and getting a knockout similar to the level that Danny Gay did against Sean Woodson. So give me a third round TKO for Fiziev. Bahamondes, you have a good future. You're young in this division. You got length, but I don't think it's going to happen against a striker of this level.
That'll move us on to the Medal of Honor recipient Jamal Hill facing off against Khalil Roundtree Jr. And if anyone has an unquipped as to why we're calling him the Medal of Honor recipient, that'd be because there's numerous reports that came out this week where they were talking about Jamal Hill did not want to fly to this location because of the ongoing conflict in Israel and Iran. Mind you, these places are thousands of miles away from where these people are fighting right now. Thousands of miles away. So tell me that you were just a jock in high school and never paid attention to any fucking map in the world without telling me, and then you pop out Jamal Hill. That being said, both of these two idiots are 0-2 in their last two fights. A great competition, except for you, Khalil Roundtree. Let's spend a little bit of time on you. I'm going to tell you why I don't really care for Khalil Roundtree. If it takes you, you're supposed to be a top echelon fighter in this division, in the light heavyweight division. If it takes you 3 full rounds to finish Anthony Smith, you're not very good. I'm sorry, but you're not. I'm really sorry. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but you're not. You're the 155 favorite. You know, Jamal Hill's not much better. He gets knocked out by Pereira. I mean, whatever. After he kicked him in the dick. Everyone knows the fight. Then you fight Prohaska at the beginning of this year and get knocked out by him as well. So you had to beat up a 42-year-old man to get your fake title, and then you get Khalil Roundtree Jr., who's lost his last, well, he won against Anthony Smith, but it took him 3-4 rounds to do it. They'll make that very clear. He also lost to Pereira. I don't like either of these people. Disgusted that I have to pick one of them, but if I had to pick one, I guess I will pick Khalil Roundtree just because he's the favorite, and I think Jamal Hill's a fucking idiot after this week's events.
Well, Jamal Hill is a character, to say the least. Very controversial with how he talks about certain topics. The UFC odds, or not the ESPN odds, are a little bit different. They have it at about an even fight. Roundtree was the minus 160 about 3 days ago. And Hill was probably about a plus 140, but action has been coming in on him, and I have to agree with it. Khalil Roundtree is like, I've said this same stuff about Ian Gary before, in a sense, where he got a lot of stock off of a loss. And before that title fight, everybody was saying, oh, Khalil Roundtree's not good. This shouldn't even count as a title defense for Pereira and all this other stuff. And then he fights Pereira. He wins one round, maybe. It was a very close round. The second or third round was close. He lost the first round, and then he gets dominated in the fourth round, right? He took probably about 4 fights worth of damage in that fight. And every single time you take multiple fights worth of damage in one fight, it does something to your confidence. And usually your career goes south, taking an ass whooping of that level. And people say that Pereira beat the 8th ranked guy in the division. But when they talk about Khalil Roundtree, it's like, oh, he beats people up like he's Batman, bro. Khalil Roundtree's this great fighter. And I'm like, dude, you have to pick one side or the other. Either Khalil Roundtree's a great defense for Pereira or Khalil Roundtree's a jobber. Pick one side on it. I think Khalil Roundtree's good. I don't think he's beating a Jamal Hill. I think he can beat, I think he's ranked fairly as far as where he's at in the division. I don't think he's beating a lot of people above him. Dustin Jacoby fight, a fight he probably should have lost. He lost to Marcin Prash, Anthony Smith, as you already mentioned. And Jamal Hill, yeah, he has 2 knockout losses, but he did not take a lot of damage. He just got knocked the fuck out, against 2 of the best fighters in the division, 2 former world title holders. I'm going to have to take Jamal Hill. I don't think this is going to be a very long fight, no matter which way it goes. I think the 50-50 odds are fair. I'm going to take Jamal Hill for a little bit of a resurgence here. I think this fight ends within the first round by KO, either
Jamal
way.
Hill doesn't get hit by a ballistic missile like he's worried about from 1,500 miles away.
But if Jamal Hill is able to make it home, he deserves an honorary Medal of Honor.
That's what I'm saying, man. That's what he thinks, at least. But that brings us to the end of this here fight card. Again, first time that we're going to be in this location. Hopefully not the last. I guess we'll just see how it goes. Be sure to check out all of our sponsors: Shank It Golf, E.GG, Cowboy Revolution. Use code CronYo Media at checkout for all those for a discount at checkout. We should have this video up. It is 6/20/2025. We should have this video up same day. That being said, be sure to check us out on YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe, and share, and stay posted. We'll keep you on the trope. Hopefully here on Sunday we will go ahead and get up the one for the next card, and hopefully on Sunday my Oklahoma City Thunder will take home an NBA Finals championship. That being said, we'll catch you in the next one.
Watch out for the deer.